All right, thank you everyone for joining in on our very first Dipping podcast. Our first guest speaker that we have is Matt Bush. He's been around a while. You've seen some of his work. He actually owns the 350Z. Also, you've seen his Genesis that he's dipped quite a few times, some really cool colors actually, and lives in Austin, Texas. He also runs the Peelable Automotive Facebook group, so it's pretty cool to definitely chat with him first. It's an honor to have him here, and let's listen in. All right, so with us we got Matt Bush. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good, I'm good. Glad you can join us for our first podcast. Actually, just kind of wanted to chat with some of the main guys who are dipping in the community. You've been around for a while, right?
I have. I don't know if I've been around as long as some of the guys, but I've been around a while.
What year did you start dipping cars?
It would have been in 2013, near the end of it. So okay. Roughly 2 years now.
What got you started into it?
Literally, I watched a couple videos of Fonzie of Dip Your Car, and then I decided to do emblems, and it all went downhill from there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I was the same way. Kind of watched a couple of videos and kind of just grew from small projects to growing bigger and bigger. Now, did you see, whenever you first saw it, did you see it as a business? Did you see it as you just constantly changing your car? Did you see it as you just doing your friend's car? Like, whenever you first saw it, what did you think?
Well, when I saw it, I just kind of, set right in with what I love to do, which is modify vehicles. And I saw a way to do it cheaply and easily. And then from there, I just kind of got obsessed with the colors and the combos and all the ideas running through my head, and then finally just decided to go full force into it.
Yeah, and I know you and I were chatting a little bit before, a private message. You showed me a couple of pictures of the first car you did. That was the Genesis, right?
Yeah, 2011 Genesis. First car I ever did. I had a really good Christmas, and my wife ended up ordering everything I described to her. I don't know how she remembered it all, but she did, and ended up with a full pro car kit and everything I needed to do what I wanted to do.
Now, you ended up getting the DYC turbine, or the DYC turbine wasn't even out then, was it? It was the Erlax, I think, what, 3500 or something?
No. The full DYC turbine, spray gun turbine, 4 gallons of dip, Pearlizer. I got the tent kit, tape and drape, basically everything that you could get to do a whole car, I ended up getting. It was pretty awesome. I mean, I'd never ordered from them before, and it was my first order as far as directly from them, and it turned out pretty neat.
Yeah. I mean, they got pretty fast shipping as well. Now, because your first one was a little bit more complex versus some of the guys and some of the gals out there will start with, maybe a matte black or like a matte color. I mean, you went into a Pearlizer, you went into tints. I mean, do you have any experience dipping car or spraying cars and painting cars? And I know you said that's your kind of your niche. It was just customizing vehicles. Were you painting before this?
No, I usually would use spray cans and do small car parts and such. And that's kind of why it intrigued me so much, is because that's what I would do, like valve covers and brake calipers, and wanted to change the wheels, say to black or whatever, and seeing something that was removable and a lot, I guess you could say, a cheaper way of doing it multiple times. That's really why it clicked with me. And so when I saw that, I actually watched their video with I think they called it their Tiffany blue or something Mercedes, or teal Mercedes. I don't remember the title, but I saw that video and I was like, I want something like that, but I don't want that green tone so much. So I took all the ideas that they laid out, but I changed it in my own way. And I had never done it before, so it was all an experiment. I ended up getting the exact color that I picked out on the computer in real life. So it turned out pretty well.
No, I mean, did you have any major mistakes? Did you mess up a bit, or was it kind of pretty simple and you watched enough videos and you figured it out before then, or what?
Well, the day I did it, we prepped and we had it in I call it a rat's nest of a shop. It was dark, it was dingy. It happened to be about 45 or 50 degrees in that range, which I had no clue if that would be optimal or not. Literally everything was working against me. I don't know why I chose to do it that night, but I just had to do it. And I had no runs. It actually, for being a first timer, I had very, very, very little texture. Everything went well. The only issue I ever had was around the antenna on the roof, and I didn't clean well enough. So really close to the antenna and the edge of it bubbled a little bit, but I found a technique that allowed it to, I guess you could say, re-liquefy and lay back down flat, and I fixed it. And then other than that, I actually kept a little nail polish bottle of the actual dip with me. And in case I had little light areas, because I knew I was like, I didn't do this perfect. I don't know the areas I was supposed to spray heavily. So around the fender wells, when rocks would, hit it multiple times and they would, take little chunks out around there, I'd just dab it with that stuff and, all of a sudden it was fixed. Like, no problem.
Huh. I've never actually heard of that. That's awesome. So you went around and kind of just touched it up and stuff like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it worked. In the areas where really people didn't look, but I would, that's where I would do it.
Right. Now, is it your car or your wife's car?
It was my wife's car, yes.
Okay. Whenever she drove it to work, what were coworkers saying and friends and family saying? Did they get it painted? Did you get it wrapped? Did they already know that you guys are going to be dipping it?
Well, so that was kind of the dawn of when I decided I wanted to do it for others. I went through the process. I had really good results. I drove it around quite a bit just because it was an awesome car. So I went to Sonic one night, and I was sitting there waiting for food, and the girl walks up to me, and she goes, "Wow, is this just painted?" And I was like, "No, this was just dipped." And then that kind of thought in my head stayed. So me and my wife went and brainstormed that evening, and we ended up calling the company that I started, This Just Dipped. And, because people always ask, is this paint or is this vinyl? This is just dipped. That's all it is. So
I love the name. Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, I just kind of went with it, right? And then it just kind of went from there. It all went well. She would drive around or I would drive it around, and we'd have people stop and just, give us a thumbs up, or, you'd hear, that's an awesome color. I had a guy in an AMG Mercedes that probably cost $100K pull up next to me and specifically honk at me just to tell me it was a badass color.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, I remember we were talking earlier, you also had, I think you, because you run the Peelable Automotive Paint group, right?
I run the what?
The Peelable Automotive Facebook group?
Yes, that is my group, yes.
All right. So, and I saw you posted, it was like a Throwback Thursday, your very first dip job. It was a customer dip job. It was a Cadillac CTS?
Yeah, that was my very first full dip for a customer.
And you used, I think it was Glossifier, because granted we didn't have any of the glosses that we have now or even coming out soon. You used Glossifier, I think? Yeah,
I did. I used the matte clear and the Glossifier mix. Again, obsessively watching the videos and taking note of what would be stated on how to do this and what to do and this, that, and the other. I went with that, but what I did not do is follow the instructions of dumping a whole 25-gram bag of flake into that. I actually went with, I say it's about 5 grams, but I literally took a teaspoon measuring measurement deal, little scoop, little spoon, whatever you want to call it, and I dug it into the 25 gram of flake, and I got a little scoop out, put it into a whole gallon, and I was like, wow, that stuff spreads like wildfire. This is enough. This is the subtlety. This has to be it. And so that's what I went with on it.
Yeah. And because I know you mentioned, and some of the pictures, it's kind of hard to see the flake. Is it, whenever you saw it in person, was there enough to call it a day and say, hey, that's plenty? Or did you think you should have added more?
Oh, no. That was more than enough.
Was it?
Literally, when you were in shade, it looked like a demon, a dark beast of a car. I mean, that's what the girl, the female, that's what she wanted. She wanted to look mean. But the reason we went with the subtle flake is because she found out that they actually, at the factory, painted Cadillacs full burnt orange. Because we were going to go full bass boat where it had flake galore on it, and just super reflective.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's your call, but there's going to be texture. And she was like, that's fine. And then she found out that they actually paint cars burnt orange or whatever you want to call it. And she said, I don't want that, but I still want something. And I said, well, let's go the opposite direction. Let's go subtle. And so I sprayed it with the subtle burnt orange, which in the photos you can kind of see it makes it almost have a brownish tinge almost because of the black and the orange. And that's the way it would look in certain lighting where there was where it was overcast, which was kind of neat. And then when the sun would hit it, you'd just see these little pops of burnt orange on it. But until you got like right on the car, you couldn't see the flake itself. Like, I know that's flake. You just saw the little pops of it on the paint.
Yeah.
And so, she was blown away. I actually loved the way that turned out because, it looked mean as hell. And then you just get these weird little pops of color here and there.
Yeah. Now, do you know if she still has it on her car now?
Well, she actually went through two different stages of it. So first was what I did. Then there was an accident, and the insurance company peeled the entire front end of the car. So she ended up getting the whole thing redone, and we ended up redoing the whole car. I didn't do it, but this was at the time that I kind of stopped doing it for customers because I got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. So I recommended she go to a friend of mine, and he sprayed it in covert black as a base. Mm-hmm. Then he used real clear with the same technique of the flake as far as the mixture goes. And he sprayed the car with that. And the end result was nice, but it was a duller result. It wasn't quite the pop of the matte clear gloss mix.
Really?
That had a little bit more of a higher satin sheen. So, or semi-gloss, I guess you could call it.
Right.
So it was a little different. Now, I don't know if that was his technique or not or anything, but, it just didn't seem to have the same kind of pop as far as the flake goes, but it did have the really good effect of being dark and mean, and then the flake would reflect. It just didn't have the gloss to it in the same way.
Yeah. Now, speaking of gloss, are you going to be using some of the new glosses that are coming out?
I would hope so.
Yeah, you think you'll mess around with some of those?
I mess around with everything. I've messed around with the dip pearl top coat. I have also sprayed 2 full cars in Zytec, and I have a higher end turbine setup. I don't have a compressor. I use an Apollo, which is it's their stage 3 or stage 4, I can't remember. And I use their gun, the 7500 GT with a 1.8 tip. And I've sprayed Zytec with that, and I tried it out on my Audi that I had. And it turned out pretty good, but it reminded me a little bit of Glossifier, just because I don't think I got the right atomization, or maybe I just didn't have the technique. And then I tried it on a Volkswagen Corrado, and that one I did a lot better on, and that one I did subtle purple flake. It was a perp section from Did Spade, and that one was awesome. That car looked really cool.
Yeah.
And dip pearl top coat, I did that on my 350Z recently. That was pretty good as far as the shine. I need a little more time with it to make it smoother, but otherwise it had really good gloss to it. The clarity's awesome. And hopefully I can try out the other stuff. Like, I don't even mind trying out the the professional autoflex or whatever with my turbine. I want to see what it does.
Right. I was talking with a couple other guys. I know Halo has that gloss coming out. We all know about it. And I sent Paul, he's out in Texas as well, and actually I reached out to Matthew and asked, hey, you know, can we test this out? I'll pay for it and so on and so forth. So I paid for Halo gloss, True Gloss, to get sent out to him, and he has the Mini Mic 5, and it worked out well. Okay, he still had a wet sand and buff. I know David, you know, he's spraying it, and there's no reason to wet sand and buff. You can, but there's no reason to. But so I know what you mean by the some of them you need to, some of you don't, depending on setup and all that. So
and here's the thing. I mean, if you have a turbine and you're like, I know I'm going to have to wet sand and buff, but I'll end up with a pretty awesome result even if I do that. You know, a little bit of elbow grease always goes a long way. You know, you gotta put in work to get the result you want. And if you have a turbine and that's all you have, but you want that same or similar result, then why not cut and buff it? You know?
Right. You know, yeah, and I think also it's a good thing to show the customers, hey, you know, here's what I did, and kind of just goes the extra steps so that people get and see the value of what they just spent their money on, you know?
Yeah, and if you can continue doing that, you may end up making enough profit to go ahead and upgrade to a compressor later on anyway. So,
right.
You know, it's not impossible to work with stuff. You just, you know, you really just got to try and do it as best as you can, and that's all this really is. That's why I went headfirst into the Genesis project. I didn't know how well I would do. I'm not a painter, so and I did it, and I actually did well at it. So you just never know until you try. That's one of the reasons why I kind of have the community the way it is. You know, I want people to know what it is. I want people to talk about it. You know, share everything you have. If you have a bad technique, talk to someone about it and see if they can help you fix it. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's why actually I reached out to you. You know, obviously, as you know, our first guest speaker on the podcast. I mean, you've always encouraged just growth and knowledge. It's not necessarily just who's who and who has the best product. You just wanted to know, hey, what was done? How was it done? What did you learn? What didn't you learn? I mean, just all of these things that I thought was pretty cool. You've always brought value to every single community, you know, within the dipping community itself. So, and I remember a while back, actually, you guys used, I remember the purple and I think green rims you guys did on the Genesis. You did like purple body and green rims, or was it vice versa?
No, you had it right.
Okay.
So we peeled the teal, and I call it teal, but it was something else. It was a neat color. We put it back to stock, and the wife was rolling around with it, and she kept talking about purple, and I was like, well, I still have some purple from a project I did on the Audi, because I had this purple that was unnamed from Halo. Matt had sent me the stuff and said, here, test it out if you want. Because I told him I wanted to do a purple base with a alien pearl over the top so that I can have a purple glow and have a alien pearl kind of color shift and see what it does. And this was before a lot of people, I think, really took that route. And it turned out nice, and I still had some of it left. In fact, I only had a gallon of it. So I ended up spraying the Genesis in the primer gray base, and then I took that gallon of purple, and I guess I had a really heavy pigment load in there, I'm not sure, and it laid down, and with 1 gallon I was able to get full coverage with it.
Wow.
Which I was kind of blown away, but it worked. And I didn't really do the hood too much because I knew I was doing, or I did the hood, and that was the part where I had a problem. And that's where the idea of doing a black stripe that followed the body lines down the hood and the front bumper and up on the roof. So I did the covert stripe up the roof and also on the hood, and a covert black wing. And then I did the first set of rims in Venom Green. Like no one had done that yet. So I sprayed full chrome rims in Venom Green. And it was our Joker theme for October. Mm-hmm. And that's what I came up with. I said, everybody does Batman. They always go black and Dark Knight. So we're going to go with the Joker. And so I made the Joker theme.
Yeah. And what do you have anything on your 350Z now?
Just the wheels are done. I have a few ideas I'm throwing around right now.
Anything you want to share? I saw that you were tossing around the idea, and I could have I don't know where I saw it at. I'm pretty sure it was you who mentioned it, where someone lifted their Z a little bit. Was that, were you talking about doing that? Is it possible that you're going to get, I mean, not off road, but at least they lifted it enough where it kind of gave it that, that aggressive lifted look and a little bit higher than the rest of them. I mean, is that, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I did share that, and I actually do like that idea for the Z. But my wife told me to my face, if you do that, I'm never driving the Z, and you can't park it in front of the house. And I said, all right, well, I guess I'm not going to do that. I mean, essentially she said, don't do that. I don't like it. And I was like, all right, well, I can't make the wife, unhappy. So I'll just go with what she says, stick with what I have, which it's lowered, and that's it, go with the typical thing. But as far as the concept goes, I've still been throwing around the post-apocalyptic theme. I've got iron filings right now, and I've got several shades of gray, not 50 shades, but I do have several shades. I have anthracite. I've got a custom mix of like this black with pearlizer that I've had for a little while. I've got a gunmetal gray. I've got black. So, a bunch of dark colors. And then I have this custom, I call it a rose bronze kind of color that I may do individual panels with to make it look like they're other pieces I've collected and bolted onto the car.
Nice.
And then some airbrushing and such. So.
Yeah. So
that's my big idea. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. It's just my big idea.
Did you jump in on the Halloween theme when everyone was throwing their red splatter around for the zombie, or did you hold out on that?
I only don't do that because I have to pick up my son from elementary.
That'll be a hell of a story.
Yeah, I don't want to drive up in bloody murder to an elementary and have them get mad that I showed up there and not be able to drive my car over there. So I kind of tend to stay away from that. But I did do that as a joke on my daughter's Volvo one last Halloween. I had some red I was spraying, and her car was just sitting there, and I know it didn't have dip on the hood or anywhere else, but I walked over and splattered hand marks all over it and made it look like she hit someone with hand marks dragged down the side.
Did she fall for it?
Oh, no. She laughed about it, and she's like, I'm totally driving that to high school tomorrow.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, she's a good kid. She doesn't care about that stuff. She laughs about it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule and chat with us. I definitely feel like, like I said before, you definitely bring a lot of value to the dipping community, and I can't wait to see more projects you guys have coming out.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'm happy to be on here. I'm happy to be, just invited, and kind of shocked that any guys look at me in the way that you've kind of mentioned it, but I appreciate it a lot. And really, I just want people to grow as a community and do better. I don't want to see results like I did with that video I posted. I want people to do a good job if they're going to do it themselves, and I want pro shops to be able to do really good jobs as well. Everybody can do it if they want. Kind of like Fonzie says, and I hate, not to keep bringing him up, but the guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He talks very positively about it, and I respect him a lot for it. So I try myself to stay in that headspace with anything I do, and I wish more people would be that way.
Yeah. Yep. No, I agree. Anytime, let alone, we've all done it. We've all sent him a message and asked a question. He responds, I think it's awesome that he holds such high business ethics, and then we all think so highly of him. He even has the, I guess you could say, humbleness to put out that bloopers video, the bloopers YouTube video of all the, normal guy, and he just, doing his thing. And yeah, he makes mistakes. He's human. He still does his own thing. But you're right. I mean, the guy, pioneer like this, that's awesome. Him to have the vision to see what it could be and what it is. Even still, his vision's probably grown since, and more than we can probably comprehend at the moment. So it's so cool to see it all.
I would have never done it without him.
Yeah, same here.
Plain and simple. If he hadn't had those videos on YouTube, I would have never done it.
Yeah.
So, he started a trend that probably was there, but not in the way that everybody could see it.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you with your new venture, unless you try and do something and step out of the norm, maybe out of your own comfort zone, you won't know what you can do yourself. So
yeah, that's
what I recommend everyone do. Step out of your comfort zone and do something with it.
Yeah. Well, cool.
But I appreciate chatting with you, and I hope that everyone enjoys the show.
All right, man. Well, enjoy the rest of your night.
All right, you too. Thank you.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
This podcast was brought to you by DrPigment.com. I want to thank our guest speaker along with our listeners. If you guys have any questions regarding some of the products that were used or mentioned, definitely check the description for links. Also, if you guys have any other suggestions for future topics, send us a message in the comment section.